Hello and welcome to Africa Fire Mission's weekly virtual training session. My name is Wesley Richmond and I'm the administrative assistant with Africa Fire Mission. And we are very happy that you took the time out of your busy schedules to join us for today's meeting. Today we are joined by Hank Clemmensen. He's going to be giving the instruction in just a few minutes. Just as a piece of housekeeping, if you stay for at least 70% of today's training, we will be able to give you a certificate of attendance for today. So just keep an eye on the chat. I will be sending a link for extra materials and a previous trainings. Before we get started with the training, I'm going to pass it over to Howard to give a few words of encouragement for today. So Howard, you can go ahead.
Great. Good morning, everybody. A new role for me as if some of you are repeat attendees. So I've been asked to give some words of encouragement. And so I was listening to one of our instructors a couple weeks ago talking about wrapping up his presentation. And he talked about it was about preparing oneself, preparing yourself physically, in terms of your training and emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. And it got me thinking about a teaching. I think it's common in all sorts of from all sorts of different religions, and it's the teaching that says you should live every day as if it's the day before your last day. And so I wanted to bring that up because as first responders, we know that every time we respond, it could potentially be our last call. Of course, we don't think about it in those terms because if we did, we probably would change professions. But the reality is that it could be our last call. But in fact, anytime and every time we get up and walk out of our house, we could meet our end. One of the truisms of that every first responder learns is that 10 out of 10 people die. So, and we are no different in that regard, even though we do our best to keep other people from dying. So here's my words of encouragement for you. Now, it may not seem like words of encouragement. It might seem a little discouraging or depressing, but they really are words of encouragement when you think about them. So when you live every day as if it's your last day, or perhaps even extend it and say it's your day before your last day and give yourself 2 extra days before your last day comes, what are you going to do with that time? Well, I'd like to suggest that you consider every day as if it is your last day or your day before your last, and live your life in the following way. Number 1, be bold. Don't be afraid to try new things. Don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid of failing. Be bold. Go out after the things that excite you. Number 2, appreciate the little things. Yeah, I mean, like the person who says, nice job, or your friend who passes you, shares some part of their lunch with you, or a flower that you see on your way to work. Just appreciate the little things. A child in the street playing, having fun, something simple. Appreciate the little things. Don't wait for the big, flashy things to go, wow, that was great. Notice all the little things and appreciate them. And appreciate one another. Number 3, trust your gut and follow your heart. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to try something new because that's what you want to do, but you're afraid maybe you shouldn't. So trust your gut, follow your heart. There's probably a good reason why your gut is telling you what to do. Number 4, grab any and every opportunity that comes along your way that interests you. You may not get the chance the following day, so grab it today in the moment when it appears to you. Number 5, don't procrastinate. Don't wait until next week to take care of business. Don't wait to apologize to someone you need to apologize to. Don't wait to tell someone that you love them that you love them. Do it now, do it, and don't wait. And last, number 6 is be kind. Be good while you can, which is to say, if today is the last day that you can be good, spend the day being good. So as you go forward with your learning, with your training as first responders, keep these points in mind and treat every day as if it's your last day or your next to last day, and make it count, make it meaningful, do with it what makes you feel proud, and have a great day of learning. And thank you for giving time to us to provide these trainings for you. So on that note, I'm going to turn it back over to Wesley and to Hank, and I'm going to say, have a great day, and I'll see you all later.
Thank you very much for that, Howard. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Hank to begin today's training.
Thank you, Wesley, and thank you, Howard, for those words of encouragement. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about electric vehicles and electric storage systems. And if you give me just a second here to share my screen. Is that working out? Is that shared okay, Wesley?
Yep, I can see it. Looks good.
Perfect. So as we go through this presentation, I'm not trying to make everybody a expert on electric vehicles or storage systems. See if there we go. But it's a orientation, prepare you to learn more about these fires and vehicles and systems. It's new to the fire service, and we're all learning here. No matter where in the world you're at, you're going to have an electric vehicle issue or fire eventually, and you have to know what you're dealing with. It's very important. So as we go through this presentation for the next 50 minutes, if you have any questions or anything, go ahead and send them to Wesley. And at the end, we'll try to answer any of the questions that you may have. And we'll get going here, if this all works well. So today we're going to talk about the hazards of electric vehicle fires. We're going to talk about the hazards of electric vehicle chargers and the charging stations and how we charge our vehicles, and the energy storage systems. Now, when I refer to an electric vehicle, just so we're all aware, this could be a scooter, this could be a motorcycle, or a vehicle, or a bus, or a truck. So we're clumping all these together. We're also going to talk about the hazards of solar panels. And at the very end, we're going to discuss quickly some SOPs, or standard operating procedures, and how you should consider fighting these fires and researching them and investigating them. So as introduction, lithium-ion battery incidents are one of the biggest topics in the fire service today. We just had 2 weeks ago, we had a World Fire Congress here in Washington, D.C., and we had 50 different countries represented. And this was one of the biggest topics that everybody talked about. And the reason it's such an important topic is because we don't understand it. It's new. Yeah, okay, we've had electric vehicles now for 100 years or so, or gas-powered vehicles for 100 years, but the electric part of it is all brand new. So, we have a lot to learn, all of us. Now, even though I'm giving you some information here on vehicle fires and how hazardous they are, in general, electric vehicles are just as safe as gas vehicles. The issue is that we don't know how to deal with the electric vehicle fires. We're very accustomed to the gas fires or gas vehicle fires, but not the electric. So when a lithium-ion battery is fully charged, which is 70 to 100%, they become very energetically hazardous. When they have a thermal runaway or when they have an issue, it's very serious. And we'll get into some of those and we'll show you some pictures. This is an issue, like I said, is across the world. It's not just in Africa. It's not just in Kenya. It's not just in the U.S. or Chicago. New York City has a serious problem with the electric scooters. They've had 4 or 5 different deaths just in the last year and a half. So these can be very serious issues. So let's talk about what is an electric vehicle battery look like. The batteries that you're going to find in an electric vehicle are very small, like the size of a AA battery, 2 or 3 inches long, maybe I guess I should use centimeters, but maybe 5 centimeters in diameter. But then what they do is they put thousands, hundreds and thousands of these batteries into a big battery pack, and that's what we're finding in our electric vehicles today. So lithium-ion batteries power just about everything we do today, everything from our cell phones to our cars, our scooters, our little portable speakers, everything. So they're out there, and we need to understand how they work and why they're such a big deal for us. The issue with the lithium-ion batteries is not the fact that they're so hazardous. It's the fact that we don't understand how to put those fires out and control and extinguish them. We've seen videos where an iPhone or a laptop will catch on fire on an airplane. Those are very easy and to deal with. We can wrap them in a fire blanket. We put them in a bucket of water and they're fine. But when you get them into a large vehicle like a car or a bus or truck, now we have some issues. So lithium ion contains flammable liquid electrolytes, and they can ignite as low as 302 degrees, which isn't very hot, considering right now it's over almost 100 degrees here in Chicago. So it's a problem. And there's a lot of different chemicals that are part of a lithium ion battery. It's not just a lithium. So is hybrid and EV technology any more hazardous than a gas vehicle? No, not at all. But we need to learn, and that's why you're taking this class, this presentation, is to try to get an idea of what it is. And you may not see a lot of vehicles yet in your country or your city, but they're coming. But I guarantee you that you still have lithium-ion batteries that you deal with every day with your iPhones and laptops, your computer, power packs, all those. So you are dealing with it. You may not be dealing with the electric vehicles like some of the other countries, but they're coming. Trust me. And an electric vehicle fire is a high risk for a firefighter. Very high risk. Good news is that you're learning. You're taking the time out of your busy day to sit here and get an idea what electric vehicle fires are all about. And what the other good news is that there's other classes available. You can Google it. There's podcasts. There's NFPA puts out a training. There's all kinds of best practices out there to how we can deal with these. And then you have to learn what's going to suit you best. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So types of lithium ion batteries, like I said, there's a lot of different chemicals involved. Anywhere from cobalt oxide, nickel, magnesium, and iron phosphates, all have different ignition temperatures and all have their own hazards. So just because it's a lithium ion battery doesn't mean it's the same as the one that's in your laptop. Just be aware. So this is what a typical lithium ion battery looks like. Like I said, it looks like a double A battery, maybe a little bit bigger than a double A. There's also the batteries in like Tesla's. They're more the size of a C-size battery. So, but there's thousands of them. This is a typical small battery pack. And it's loaded with those batteries. So if a battery's on fire, it's strategically based on the size of the battery. There's a big difference between putting out the battery fire in your cell phone versus the battery in a bus or a truck or a car. So what is the problem? The problem is when a battery goes into a thermal runaway. What is a thermal runaway? Thermal runaway is when a battery is either damaged, has a malfunction due to the manufacturer, and one of those batteries that I showed you, one of those small little C or double A batteries is damaged, it'll start to heat up. And when it heats up, it spreads to the next battery. And next thing you know, you have a thermal runaway, and they can be very explosive. We had a call not too long ago where a small charging system in a hybrid car, small battery, blew the whole garage door off of a parking garage, at a residence. Almost killed a captain on the fire service. So treat these with a lot of respect. Plus, they can burn for a long time. Cell phone battery may only burn for maybe 5 minutes. A car battery in a EV, it could burn for 6 hours. So just understand that. We have to continue to train and learn all about the new technology. Technology is changing, and we have to be able to change as the technology changes. EV fire generate a lot of hydrogen fluoride, which can be fatal if you breathe it in. These electric fires, these car fires and electric bus fires, you need to treat them as if it's a hazardous materials incident. You need to have your SCBA on. There's chemicals that these batteries put off that you do not want to breathe. So the key here is to train. Get out there, check your vehicles out, get out there with the other guys and start training. So before we get into more of the electric vehicle fires, let's talk a little bit about the energy storage systems. Now, you may not see a lot of them around where you're at, but they're becoming more and more popular around the world. And what they are is like a giant battery that's mounted on the wall to give the house uninterrupted power supply. And this is what they're going to look like. You see those 2 Tesla battery packs. And that's all they are, is lithium ion battery packs. Here's another picture of it next to a home charger for an electric vehicle. There's another picture of one. They're all tied into the power system of the house. They also have bigger ones. As you can tell here, this is a commercial energy storage system. You see the windmill in the back. You see the solar panels, and they supply power to that container. that container is full of batteries. One of the things that you want to make sure is that you be very careful and not start fighting that fire. Is there a reason to put out that battery storage container fire? No. It's in the middle of a field. Be smart. If there's no exposure, just stand by and let the experts who own that storage system be able to disconnect the power, make sure it's safe before you do anything to that storage system. There's a large, very large storage system. And one thing I want to point out here is the fence around it. And why do you think there's a fence around that storage system? It's to keep us and everybody else out of it because it's so dangerous. Do not go in there. If one of those storage systems is on fire, do not go in there. Wait till you get the owner or the experts out there to tell you what to do with these storage facilities. They should be pre-planned. In other words, go out, know where they are at, but be careful. There's a fence there for a reason. Here's a solar farm. And we'll talk a little bit about solar panels in a few minutes. And then they provide power to those battery storage systems, electric storage systems that you see in the front there, the one with Tesla marked on it. Again, very hazardous. So here's a diagram of what we're talking about. So we have over here, we have our power plant. It could be nuclear or fossil fuel. We have other sources like the windmills, solar panels, and that power goes into these storage facilities down here. So when the demand from the residents or the community is more than the power plant, for example, can put up, it draws power from the storage facility to supply the power for the demand that it's calling for. It's not very complicated, but these storage facilities down here in the blue become very hazardous if there's a fire. This is also something that's very popular today you're seeing a lot of solar panels, residential, commercial. You'll see solar farms. We have to be very careful as a firefighter as to how we handle these. First of all, they're on the roof of our homes. They provide extra weight. So we want to make sure that when they put those up there, that the roofs can support them. And then if there's a fire, we want to make sure that we protect ourselves. So the power that comes off of those solar panels is DC, direct current. Different from what we have when you plug in your outlet in your home or office. That is an AC. Here in the U.S., we use 110. Most places in Africa and Kenya, they all use 240. But it's still AC power, alternating current. Solar panels put out direct current. And you're going to ask, what's the difference? Direct current occurs when the current flow is constant. If it's 12 volts or 6,000 volts, it's always constant. AC, on the other hand, alternates. It inverts it. So this is an example. On the right here, that's AC, alternating current. And why is that so important for us as a firefighter? Well, if you were to get electrocuted or grab a wire of 120 or 240 volts, you'll notice that the voltage goes up, but it goes here. It always passes the 0 mark. So if it's 60 cycles, 60 times a second, that voltage that you're holding on to is 0. What does that mean? It means it gives you an opportunity to break away. Conversely, a direct current, if it's 600 volts, it's always 600 volts. I know most of us have probably jumped our car batteries, which is only 12 volts, maybe 15 amps. But you notice there's a large spark. So when they do a lot of welding, it's all in direct current. Electric welders are very high amperage voltage, and it gets so hot it melts the metal, and then that's how we weld. So if I had a choice, I'm going to want the alternating current if I'm going to grab a hold of something, because it gives me an opportunity to break away. Very important to understand this. So a solar panel, and you can see the wires coming off right here. Each panel produces probably like 30 volts, direct current. And they're put in series, so it keeps building. So when you see those big roofs that are covered with solar panels, there's a lot of direct current voltage coming off of those panels. But how does that how does that get put into our alternating current systems that we use in our homes? Well, there's an inverter. And you see the inverter right here. That inverter takes that direct current and converts it to alternating current and puts it into our system, whether it's a commercial unit, a big solar farm, or your house, or even if you have like a travel trailer or just a little small one that powers our low voltage lights. They all have to have an inverter if they're going to use AC. Now, this is the most popular style where you have all these solar panels come off with direct current. The new style, and we're trying to get a lot of codes passed, that actually put the converter at each panel, which is safer for us as a firefighter. Here's what we call a solar farm. Another thing to notice here is the fence around it. There's a reason. There's a lot of direct current voltage coming off of those panels, enough to kill you. Please be careful. If you have a solar farm fire or any solar panel fire, be very careful. There's a lot of voltage that comes off of those solar panels. Even on a cloudy day or very dirty panels, they still produce electric current. So just because you throw a blanket over it, even if there's a little corner of that panel that's still exposed, you're going to have some current. Just be careful. Remember, if you see a fence around a solar farm, solar panels, electric storage systems, there's a reason. It's to keep us out. So just be careful. All right. Again, here's a diagram. We have the sun hits the solar panels, creates a direct current, goes into an inverter, changes it to AC, provides power for our home and businesses and to the grid. Here's what we call a bidirectional EV charger. These vehicles can actually provide power to your house. So if you have a bidirectional EV charger and the car is plugged in, that car can provide power to the system. What does that mean for us? Well, just because you go to a house fire and you shut off the power to the grid over here, you still have power coming from the solar panels. So even if you shut that off, you still have power coming from this bidirectional charger. So, and if they have a generator, that's a fourth way. So there's a lot of different ways a typical business or home can get their power. You just need to make sure that you have disconnected all those sources of power. So, as we're talking about EV chargers, 3 levels of charging, level 1, 2, and 3. Level 1 and 2 are the typical ones that you see in your home. Level 3 is a direct current fast charging, like the Tesla supercharging, and they can charge extremely fast. And how do they do that? With high voltage. So here's a diagram of what the charging systems look like. Level 1 and 2 is what you're going to find in your house. Usually in Africa, you're at 240 volts, so you're going to be at the level 2 chargers. My wife's electric charger car has one of these little, we just plug it into the 110. It may take 8 hours to charge, but it's okay. The higher your voltage coming in, it's going to charge a little faster. These are the commercial ones that you see out in parking lots. They take a lot of voltage because they charge with 600 volts direct current. This is what a typical in your home small parking garage charger will look like. This is your charger inverter right here. It's plugged into the house current. Level 3 charging, those are the ones that I'm really concerned about. Level 3 charges at 400 to 900 volts direct current. Supercharging. You don't see them in residence. You don't even see them in small parking garages. You're going to see them in the middle of a parking lot, and there's usually a bunch of them because they take so much current. They can charge an EV vehicle at a rate of 3 to 20 miles of range per minute. Just remember that the voltage for those level 3 chargers are extremely high and they're direct current. Level 1 and level 2 charging systems are alternating current. So this is a picture of a level 3 charger. You can see here for the level 1 and level 2 charger, it goes in, has to go to a converter so that it can convert it to direct current. On the level 3 charging, it bypasses the converter and jumps right in. This is what a level 3 charging system would look like. You'll see them out there. They're usually grouped in small groups, like 3, 6, or 9 of them. And you'll see a big power transformer box next to them because they take so much voltage. What does it mean to us? Be careful. As a firefighter, if you have one of these on fire, stay away. Wait till somebody gets there that can help you disconnect the voltage so that you don't get electrocuted. So what is the issue? What's the issue with an EV fire? So when a vehicle accident occurs, the battery gets damaged, it's overcharged, the battery's defected from the manufacturers, the batteries go into a thermal runaway. And just a note on defective when manufactured. The last I heard from the manufacturers was that about 10% of the batteries are defective when they get manufactured and are returned to the manufacturer. So there is a high rate of defective batteries. So you just don't know when a battery is going to go into thermal runaway. It could be you dropped your phone. It could be you dropped your computer. It could be the EV was involved in an accident, and it could happen at any time. It could happen immediately. It could happen days later. But when these batteries go into thermal runaway, they overheat, producing a similar action to other batteries when it's within that battery pack. And it ultimately starts to fire and spreads to other vehicles, other batteries, and it's very violent. It's a very violent explosion. We'll show a picture of it in a few minutes. Also, it's important, under EVs, electrical vehicle fires, there's two electrical systems. You have your standard 12-volt system, and you have your 600-volt systems that power the drivetrain. So just because you disconnect the 12-volt or just because you disconnect the 600-volt system, remember that the 12-volt system, regular car battery, still services the instrument panel, the airbags, the sound system, other things. So as a firefighter, we need to make sure that you are disconnecting both systems, de-energize them.
Kutumefuatiwa deposit.
Um,
Not talk type photo.
if you can, just go ahead and mute your computer if you would. There is no universal emblem that identifies an electric vehicle. So a lot of the vehicles that are out there, you don't know if they're electric, plug-in hybrid or a gas. And you gotta try to figure it out. It's part of our size up when we get to a car fire. Likewise, there is no universal location for the disconnect for the 600-volt system or the 12-volt system. I will tell you that a lot of the departments here, what we do is we've actually purchased the plug that plugs into the electric vehicle. It's not connected to a cable or anything, but once the vehicle is plugged in to the charging unit, whether it's connected to the charging unit or not, that plug disengages or turns off the electric vehicle. Because you don't know if that electric vehicle is running or not until you plug it in. Let's talk a little bit about bus fires. We got about 10 more minutes. Like a bus fire, here's a fire in a transit depot. In this case, the batteries are on the roof. And it's tough. And he's spraying it with a dry chem. It's not going to do any good. Here's a little video I wanted to show you how explosive these batteries can be. This is in real time. Boom. On here. So this is another bus. Luckily, it was parked in a by itself. It's an electric bus fire. You're going to let it burn. Okay, let's talk a little bit about SOP suggestions for these fires. What is an SOP? It's a standard operating procedure, an organizational directive that establishes a standard course of action for whatever it is that you're trying to provide this SOP for, in this case, electric vehicles. They're written guidelines, and I say guidelines because every fire, every incident that we go on is a little different, but it gives you some guidelines on what to do, explains and what to expect, and what's required of the fire service personnel in performing their job. A comprehensive set of SOPs defines a significant detail how the department intends to operate. In my departments that I've worked for, we've had a very large binder of SOPs. Now they're all computerized, but whether it's a house fire, a car fire, garbage fire, medical emergency, hazardous materials, whatever the incident could be, there was an SOP giving us some guidelines on how to deal with it, how to provide water supply. So it's very important that you come up with an SOP for your with your department and try to define how you're going to deal with these electric vehicle fires, because you have options. But what you're going to have to consider is you're going to have to wear full PPE, in other words, your turnout gear. You should have SCBAs or breathing apparatus ready on all your vehicles so that you can wear them when you get to these fires. You're going to need to block traffic if it's on the highway. And you should be if it's on the highway, you should be wearing high-vis vests. One of the first things we always do when we get to an incident is that we do an initial size up, a 360-degree walk around and size up what the incident is. This is not unusual for an electric vehicle fire or any vehicle fire. We use what we call a TIC, or a thermal imaging camera. We look to see if there's any heat being produced. Especially on an electric vehicle fire, this is extremely important. If it's not on fire already, if it's just kind of smoking, you can find out where the battery is at. And confirm the vehicle's power source. Is it an EV? Is it a natural gas? Is it a propane, gasoline? You need to know that. So that's part of our size up. Set up an incident command system. Somebody's got to be in charge. You're going to have a safety officer. Determine tactical priorities. Is it a fire extinguishment? Is it an extrication? Is it a victim care? What is your priorities? Important thing, this third bullet. Approach at a 45-degree angle to the vehicle. Why? Why do we do that? Today, all the bumpers have what they call collision bumpers. They are connected to the frame of a vehicle, mostly with a form of shock absorbers. Those bumpers, when they heat up, they can explode, and it becomes a projectile out the back or the front. So by approaching at a 45-degree angle, we avoid that hazard. We also want to make sure that we chalk or crib the vehicle, make sure it's not going to roll away. We don't know if it's in park or the emergency brake is on. So always on these fires, whether it's any kind of car fire or vehicle fire, any vehicle fire, make sure the vehicle is secure. Again, stabilize the vehicle with chocks and cribbing to avoid it from moving. EVs don't make any sound when they're on. My wife's car, electric vehicle, is so quiet you can't hear it. power down the EV based on the information from the emergency response guide. You can Google it, but you'll find an emergency response guide for all electric vehicles. Well, most 99% of the electric vehicles. And there's an app for it, and you can download that. You need to understand what your fire attack options are. What do I mean? Well, what are you going to do? You're going to let the vehicle burn, which is often the best option. If you let an EV fire just burn, it'll probably burn out in about an hour or so. If you put water on it, you're just going to delay the inevitable. And you could be out there for hours. And you're going to use, typically to put out an EV fire, it takes 5 to 30,000 gallons. Or as far as liters, it's 19,000 to 114,000 liters. That's a lot of water. And if it's out in the middle of a field or on a highway, it's not worth it. The car is already ruined. It'll be totaled. So you're not saving anything. Plus, what you also have to remember is that if you put all that water on an electric vehicle fire, where is that water going after you put it on the vehicle? It takes all those hazardous chemicals from the battery and other plastics on the vehicle, and it puts them into your water system. So it becomes a hazardous materials incident. Consider an EV incident as a hazmat response, like I just said. If you're going to put water on it, make sure you have sufficient personnel and equipment on hand so you can rotate your crews. You can have people there to block traffic and rehabilitation, decon. Very important. This last bullet, very important. Once you do extinguish or you use a blanket on an EV fire, make sure that the towing company understands that it's an electric vehicle. So when they take that vehicle away, make sure they put it off by itself. Don't put it near a bunch of other vehicles because it will probably reignite. And then you'll have a bigger problem, maybe out of your community, but the tow truck company is not going to appreciate it if their whole yard starts on fire. You'll need to come up with a process to decon all your PPE and all your equipment that you've used. Make sure you decontaminate it. Remember, I told you these lithium-ion batteries and car fires should be treated as a hazardous materials incident. If it's a smaller ion battery, never put it into an elevator. If that battery should explode inside the elevator, it's going to be bad. Remove all batteries from a structure prior to your overhaul. Make sure you get rid of those batteries. Get them out, put them by themselves in an area where they're not going to cause a problem until somebody can recycle them. Some of your tactics. Some people are looking at, especially in Europe, they taking this whole vehicle and immersing them in a container of salt water. Not recommended. Although it may put out the fire, as soon as the water goes away, the batteries will probably continue their thermal runaway and they'll just reignite. Plus, it takes a lot of water to fill those containers. Containers are expensive. We're seeing some success with some departments locally here using the blankets. They're very expensive, anywhere between $2,000 and $5,000 US, but they do work. And these departments are insuring or recovering their costs for these blankets through the insurance company. Battery piercing devices. There's a company out there that's producing some of those. It's not recommended. Everything that we've learned so far is that the manufacturers do not recommend that you pierce the battery packs to extinguish the fire. It may be something else may come out in the future that dismisses that, but for right now, that is the recommendation from the manufacturers of these battery packs, is that you do not pierce them. If you Google Patrick Durham's article, Electric Vehicle Fires, he's got a nice podcast on and some really good information on electric vehicles fires. I would strongly recommend taking a look at that. And that, with 5 minutes to go, is my presentation. Wesley, do you have any questions that you see on the chat?
It does not look like we have any questions in the chat. But if anybody has any questions now, you can go ahead and put them in, or just go ahead and unmute and we will get those answered for you.
Questions on what we presented today? Any concerns?
Yeah, I have a question of mine.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, say like you have been called to an incident involving a car. Now the car is on fire, and that car is using these ordinary batteries. After sizing up, definitely when it comes in, the first thing, if the situation resident is allowing us, the first thing is to disconnect the power supply, that is the battery terminal. If you have that access, you need to do that before starting putting out fire with water. So for these electric vehicle fires, after sizing up and the restoration allowing us to go in the inner circle, should we also follow the same procedure of removing the battery terminals if it has electric vehicles? That's my question.
Okay. Wesley, can you mute everybody but except for Patrick?
All right. Should we come again?
Hold on 1 second.
Let me
Okay, so
try to unmute. Try to mute.
I should ask the question. Hello. Hello.
I don't know if I understood you correctly, Patrick, but your question was why we don't use a lot of or why we use so much water on these fires. Is that what you were asking, sir?
Yeah, of course, but it's like I said before, I start using water. I need to disconnect the power supply. That's for the cars which has produced ordinary batteries, lead acid batteries. Now for these electric vehicle fires, should also am I also supposed to follow the same procedure of disconnecting from the battery terminal? Does it have a battery terminals? That's where my question is.
If I'm hearing it correctly, there is a app that you can get for your phone that will give you emergency guidelines on how to de-energize these vehicles. There's this but they're different on every vehicle. For both the 600 volt and the 12 volt, you really want to make sure that you de-energize these vehicles during an accident. Obviously, during a fire, there's not much you can't get in there to do that. But in an accident or before the car starts, you want to know how to de-energize that vehicle. That's where emergency response guide app will come in handy. You'll have to know the type of vehicle, the model number, and then it'll tell you that. But if you Google it, you'll see it, or go to your Apple store or your Google store, and you'll see that app available.
Right. Right. So what you're saying is when I've been called to electric vehicle fires, after sizing up, nothing I can do apart from putting out releasing water and putting out the fire. That's what you say. That was after following up the manual guidelines.
Well, a chemical extinguisher, whether it's a dry chem, CO2, purple K, or whatever the extinguisher is, they do not work on electric vehicle fires. The only thing that will work on a vehicle fire is water. However, it takes copious amounts of water. I mean, like I said, about over 100,000 liters of water.
That's where the problem can be. Yes, I'm following you.
That's more water than most of us have available. So what we're doing, some departments, first thing they do, if it's inside of a residential parking garage, they get it out of the garage. They hook a chain up to it and pull it out of the garage. And then they can fight the fire in the garage. If there's an electric vehicle fire in the garage, you got to get that car out.
Right.
And the best way, if the fire is not causing any exposures, the best method is to let it burn. In my opinion.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Welcome.
Let's see, I got 20 chats here. Let's see if there's anything.
Mustafa, looks like you have your hand raised. Do you have a question? You can go ahead and unmute if you do.
All right, thank you very much, Wesley. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
All right. According to the presentation, it seems 3/4 of the EV fires end up into an explosion. Now, according to the standard operating procedures that you have just explained here, we are following the normal way of how we use the procedures on any emergency vehicle. I mean, any vehicle accident. We started by stabilizing the vehicle, checking the surrounding and everything. But the scenario here with the electric vehicle is much dwelling into an explosion. In the first, I wanted to know if we would have that time to start stabilizing the vehicle. We start by stabilizing the vehicle instead of start fighting it or cooling the fire. And again, you made mention of a technique whereby we pierce the batteries. What criteria do we have to use to make sure that the batteries are pierced? And how effective would it be to make sure that it will control the situation if you pierce the battery? Because normally IV vehicles, batteries have a liquid-like stuff inside. So when you pierce it, there are some products that will come from the battery that will exacerbate the fire. I don't know how would that technique of piercing work, even though you said it's not recommended, but it seems it is used somewhere, somehow. So I just wanted to know, have a clear highlight on that.
Okay, so first of all, when I say these batteries will have an explosive reaction, as you saw in that one video, the fire will grow rapidly. If you pull up to an electric vehicle and you see it smoking, the chances are it's going to catch on fire. It's not necessarily going to explode like you would think of a gasoline car fire. But as you approach it, you should have a hose line off anyways, but you need to stabilize the vehicle. You need to make sure that you put something in front and behind the tire so the vehicle doesn't roll away and cause more damage. It's not going to just explode as far as because it's smoking. It's not going to explode in like a bomb, but it's going to grow very rapidly. But you still need to do a size up of the incident. You need to make sure that vehicle is somewhat stabilized so it doesn't roll away. And that goes for any vehicle fire or any vehicle accident. You need to stabilize the vehicle. Reference your battery piercing. Rosenbauer has developed a device that you hook up a hose to, that it will pierce the battery from below and spray water inside of it. Most of the manufacturers, these car manufacturers, don't recommend that. But the batteries are solid. It's not a lead acid battery like your 12-volt system where it has acid inside. These batteries are solid, just like your AA battery that you have in your some of your appliances, like your remote control and your TV. Those batteries don't have liquid inside. They're solid. And that's the way the lithium ion batteries are constructed. So if you were to, even if you were to pierce the battery, they're not going to, it's not going to leak out. But the problem is, unless you have the specific device to pierce the battery, you're not going to be able to get enough water in there to do any good. If you just pierce it with a Halligan tool or an axe, you're not going to be able to get the nozzle up there. So unless you have this specific apparatus, which runs around $10,000 US, very expensive, you're not going to be able to pierce the battery and do any good. So that's why we don't recommend piercing the battery pack, because you're not, unless you have this one specific device, which is controversial by itself, you're not going to get enough water in that battery pack. These batteries, and you can Google, if you look at what a Tesla battery looks like, battery pack, you'll see these batteries are packed in tight. And you're not going to be able to get enough water to cool those batteries down to keep them from doing a thermal runaway. Again, it's my recommendation that if the vehicle is not causing any exposure problems, is that you let it burn or cover it. Or if you have hundreds of thousands of liters of water available, then you can put your water on it. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, it does. But now, according to whatever you have explained here, it seems as firefighters, we have not yet come up with clear ways through which we can fight an AV accident, is it? So it will take chances that it is by chance that you'll be able to extinguish it or let it burn. But since research is still ongoing, one day maybe I hope we'll find ways through which we can handle these situations.
And we as the fire service are working on trying to come up with better solutions. And but at this point, we're all trying different systems, whether it's immersing the vehicle into a container, putting a blanket over it, or letting it burn, or putting hundreds of thousands of liters of water on it. We're still learning. But you just need to know what your options are. As
Yeah,
you're
that's right.
in your area, you need to know what you think would be best to how to handle that fire.
Okay, well, I don't know if I was not able to understand you correctly. You said that some electric vehicles have a 12-volt battery, which works on the other systems like the sound system, the airbag, and other small things. And at the same time, they also have a 600-volt battery that runs the engine. Is that right?
Yes, the 600
Now you
volt
will say,
system runs the drivetrain, and the 12-volt battery is just like your 12-volt battery in your car today. It runs all
okay.
the accessories. So yes, there's two systems.
So do they have a common connective gadget whereby if you want to disconnect it, you disconnect it from there and it will disconnect all the two batteries at once?
No, no.
Oh,
You have to know how to disconnect both systems. The 12-volt system is pretty straightforward.
Yes, you just remove a terminal.
You just cut one of the cables, and that'll disengage the airbags, for example, which is important.
Yeah.
The 600-volt system, every manufacturer is a little different. But if you see these big cables that are yellow or orange, they're usually the 600-volt system. Do not cut those unless you know where you're cutting, because you'll get electrocuted.
Okay.
That's why it's so important to know or have that app which tells you where and how to disconnect the 600-volt system.
And now we have these other vehicles that have a solar panel on the roof. Do we have to handle them in the same way like the ones that are charged using electric power?
You mean the solar panels on top of cars and trucks and stuff?
Yes.
Yes. And I'm not that familiar. They're fairly new and very rare. They usually just charge the 12-volt system.
Okay, fine.
My understanding is that those are mainly to keep the 12-volt system charged. But you know, the technology is changing so rapidly.
Yes.
It's hard to, and that's why it's so important that when you come across these vehicle fires or accidents, that you take the time to understand the type of vehicle you're dealing with. And just don't blatantly go out and start cutting cables until you know what you're doing.
All right. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the questions. Anybody else have a question? Well, Wesley and I will stay on for a little bit longer, but I want to thank everybody for taking the time out of their busy afternoon or evening to listen. Wesley, do we make this presentation available to them at all?
Yes. So in the chat, there's a YouTube link to our YouTube channel. you'll be able to access this training there. That'll be posted soon. We'll also have materials from today's training in our Google folder. If you did not complete 70% of the training or would like to participate in a reassessment, you can access that and we can get you the certificate, even if you did not complete the 70% today. But other than that, I think I will stop the recording now, but Hank and I will still be available for questions for a little bit longer after this. But thank you everybody for attending, and thank you, Hank, for today's instruction.
Okay, my pleasure. And thank you everybody for attending. I'll stay on with Wesley for a few minutes if anybody